portrayal of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings. Welcome, please, ladies and gentlemen, Sir Ian Mckellen. An entrance. Such an entrance. Fred Astaire.
Do we sit down now?
You do sit down. Yes, you do. You may stand if you want to. I don't mind at all. So, I saw you at the last week at the BAFTAs, sitting there. Were you disappointed not to be selected as Best Supporting Actor?
Well, they're dreadful, these award things, you know, because they pit performers against each other. And you know, when you're playing Gandalf, you're not saying, am I going to be compared with Bill Murray in Lost in Translation? It doesn't make any sense. No. And then suddenly, there you are, put in a category, and of course you want to win, don't you?
Do.
Anyway, I saw Bill Nye, who won in my category the night before, and we agreed that the worst man would win. And so it was, yes.
Of course, Mr. Jackson, whose film you appear in, the Lord of the Rings, I mean, that was a very worthwhile win, and I think something that, I mean, it's a huge cinematic achievement, isn't it, you've been involved in? It's epic in every sense.
Massive, yes.
And, you know, in 100 years' time, they'll show that trilogy, and people will be saying, who's that man playing Gandalf? I mean, it's a wonderful thing about immortality.
Well, I wonder whether that'll be true.
I think it will be.
It's always been in the back of my mind I would like to have been in Casablanca, you know, to be in just the sort of film you're talking about, that people go on watching and watching and watching. But I wonder whether, even like that film, ours mightn't date quite quickly. I mean, that's in black and white, isn't it, Casablanca?
Casablanca is.
You know, maybe 3D is going to come back to the cinema, and suddenly Lord of the Rings will look a bit old-fashioned, and maybe people have been rather nostalgic about it than caught up in the excitement of actually being in Middle-earth, which they are at the moment.
I just think it's not about that. It's not about Tolkien or anything. It's about the cinematic achievement of what he's done.
Yeah.
I think it's the canvas he's painted it on. I think it's never been done before.
Well, I agree, and people should go and see it in the cinemas while it's there, because I mean, people get it on DVD and watch it at home, but that's not the place to watch Lord of the Rings. You must see it on the massive screen.
That's right, with the soundtrack
and every the soundtrack and every little corner of the screen is filled with life, apparently.
Yes.
Although much of it was created inside a computer, which is magical to me.
Did you? He's doing next King Kong. Have you auditioned for him yet for that part?
Yes, I do. Well, yes, I'm always auditioning. I was sitting on the front row at BAFTAs, and there was Peter just behind me, so I turned around and did my monkey face, but I don't know.
What about Gandalf? I mean, have we seen the last?
We haven't mentioned Johnny Morris, have we? Well, why should we? Well, because I'm thinking of gorillas. He had a charming programme for children in which he had animals on each week, and
Animal Magic.
Was it called Animal Magic?
Yeah.
Animal Magic.
Yeah.
And this week he'd gone down to Bristol where the gorilla had a baby, and of course, perfect for kids' television. And Johnny Morris was dangling this little gorilla on his knee and cosseting, and over in the corner the camera kept cutting to the mother who was watching this going on. Now you be Johnny Morris and dangle the baby, and I'll be the mother watching.
All right.
I've done that impersonation for Peter Jackson, but it's not getting me.
What
No.
about, I mean, you spent, of course, one of the things about doing the Lord of the Rings, the trilogy, was that you spent a considerable amount of time in New Zealand.
Yes.
And I met you over in Australia recently.
Yeah.
I took you to a cricket match, your first day-night game. I said to him, look, we're going as guests to the Australian Cricket Board. It's formal. I said, so there's a dress regulation. It's boring, but you have to put a tie on and you have to have a suit on. So he turned up, and I got my back to the door, and I knew he'd enter because it was a deathly silence. And he turned around, and he got a flat cap on, he got a white umpire's jacket and purple trainers.
No.
But They didn't mind because it was Gandalf, wasn't it? You see?
Yeah, it was, I was the only properly dressed man there, I thought.
You were.
I mean,
You
everyone was in a state of undress. I mean, you didn't have a tie. Oh, yes, you did.
I do.
I think you'd taken yours off by the
Uh,
time I got there.
yeah, no, it was
And I'm
my-
sorry about the clothes, but...
That's all right. I think we started a new fashion. And there'll certainly be a while before they get over it in that box, that's for sure. But what about the notion of Australia? The first time I think you've been there, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And people have preconceived notions, don't they, about places like Australia? Did in fact, were they fulfil these preconceived notions, or...?
I suppose most of us think that Australians are rather brash, don't they? And you know, out with it and perhaps a little bit disrespectful and so on. Turns out that those are just the Australians who are exported from the place, and the Aussies I met were all to a man and woman, absolutely charming and sweet, and very concerned that you should like the place. And the first question they always ask is, I enjoyed Sydney? And I kept thinking, do I say that when people come to London? No. When I say to people who come to London, I start apologising for the place. Sorry about the rain, sorry about the public transport, sorry about the government, and everything else. And mind you, we won't get into politics.
No. Well, maybe later on.
No.
But New Zealand, too, I know you're particularly fond of New Zealand, too, aren't you?
I am. Now New Zealand's different because it is small, and you can get a sense in quite a short time as to what it's like. And what it's like is that there is everything there. Every corner you turn, there's something different, whether it's a glacier or a live volcano or a virgin forest or a massive sheep farm or wonderful mountains, always seascapes, and terribly, terribly exciting and like a world you've never been to. And that, of course, is captured in Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
And I think New Zealand should be used as a place where everybody goes for 6 months after school. Go to New Zealand and find out what life's really about.
Probably your mood in New Zealand, your feeling, is the thing because you're in a more contemplative state of mind now. You're getting older, aren't you? And you've got your...
Well, you know what that was like.
I do know that. We were going all together. But this year, of course, you get you're an OAP, aren't you, this year?
Yes,
Get the bus
any
pass.
month now. Well, no, actually, you get the bus pass when you're 60 now because Europe has said that there mustn't be a... Yes, did you not know that?
I didn't know that.
No.
All these, I could have gone free on the buses all these years now.
Yes, well...
Gosh almighty.
Europe has said there must be no discrimination between the genders, and we agree with that, and because women get it at 60, so men do.
I suppose, though, I mean, from your point of view, I mean, the parts that become available are very interesting, aren't they? Things like Lear and Falstaff and things like that.
Interesting but difficult.
Wow.
I'm not galloping towards
Are they
playing
not mountains
King
to
Lear.
climb for you?
They are. They are high peaks. I occasionally see a King Lear beckoning, but they're very, very difficult plays, and other people have done them wonderfully well. And
But one thing I do know you are doing in the future is pantomime.
well, I am as...
You're going to play Dame?
Yeah, well, I am going to play Dame, yes, I am. I keep telling everybody, and I hope, therefore, it'll happen. I keep going around and saying, and people say, no, I don't think so. But I've got my sights set on it.
Why?
You see, I mean, I always wanted to do what these two started up by
Stand-up.
doing stand-up.
Did you?
Those are the first performers I ever saw. And Dame, really, is a part, not for an actor, but for a stand-up. It's not a case of being convincingly a woman, but it's being very convincingly a man dressed as a woman.
Yes.
There's a difference there.
Yes.
And so I've got to think of myself first as a stand-up, and when I've sort of conquered that, then I'll think of how to put on a frock.
What's interesting about you, of course, is that you see you now as an actor in all your glory, and you go back to all your parts and all the parts you've played, is to understand that, in fact, that wasn't your first choice. You didn't want to be an actor as such. I mean, you wanted to be... Well, you were a journalist to start with.
Well, I think I probably wanted to be what you are, Michael. I mean, well, you're a journalist. You began
Yes,
as a journalist, didn't you?
absolutely, yeah.
And you've ended up doing this, which is journalism,
Sure,
interviewing
sure.
people. So, but that's what I wanted to do, and I used to write for the Bolton Evening News when I was at school. 7 and 6 I got for each little bit I wrote in the chit-chat column. But the editor, when I went to see him and asked for jobs, said he had fewer jobs to offer in a year than he had people applying for them in a week.
Yes.
So I chose the safer route of being an actor.
Well, but was that the only reason? I mean, how much of it to becoming an actor was due to your sexuality? Was due to what I was talking to Tyrone about? You discovered that you were homosexual, and you would be more comfortable as an actor.
Yes. Well, there are two things related to that. Yes. Well, living in Bolton before you were born, when it was illegal for me to make love. Illegal.
Yeah.
I didn't know anybody in Bolton who was gay, and we didn't use that word, queer, and that's what we were. We were queer, we were odd, we were peculiar, we were strange. But I'd heard that in the British theatre you could meet other queers, and it proved to be the case, Michael. But it wasn't just that. I think on reflection, and I don't know whether this is psychobabble, but if you're in a situation where society is discouraging you from expressing yourself emotionally, honestly, in the way that straight people are encouraged to do, you know, by advertising their weddings and wearing wedding bands and taking their children with them everywhere, parading their sexuality. You're not allowed to do that if you're gay. I found a job where I was encouraged to be open emotionally, but playing another character and other than myself. And I think that may explain why quite a lot of actors are gay. They've used it to help them get through the difficult times.
There was, but I mean, also too, I mean, it took you a while to actually declare your position, didn't it? I mean, you were...
49.
49, so you were, this awful phrase, in the closet for a long time.
Well, there are grades of being in the closet, and I think coming out's a journey, you know, and some people get it over with very, very early on. I know a lad whose mother took him into the kitchen when he was 14 and sat him down and said, "I've got something to tell you, son." He said, "What?" And she said, "You're gay." Well, what a wonderful way to find out, with wise mother telling you something that you hadn't known about yourself. But most of us have to tell our parents the other way around, and I never got round to telling mine before they both died. And to my dying day, I shall regret that I never completed my relationship with my parents by telling them, you know, such a central thing about myself.
But maybe for the best reasons. Maybe you thought it would hurt them. Maybe you thought somehow it would upset them.
Well, that's the thing about coming out. I mean, everyone's always frightened of what other people will think. If I tell people that I'm gay, they'll sack me. If I tell them they're gay, they won't like me. And when I came out, I told my stepmother, 82, she didn't turn her hair. She said, "Oh, darling, I've known that for 40 years now. What are you going to have for tea, you know?" But she said, "Oh, well, hang on. Are you going to tell your sister you're gay?" Well, I'm not sure she'll like it. I go to Jean, I tell her I'm gay. She says, "Oh, that's fine with me, darling. I've always known. Are you going to tell your auntie that you're gay? Because I don't think she'll like it." I tell my auntie. She's worried about somebody else. And finally get down to my nephew, and I tell him I'm gay, and he says, "Oh, well, that's fine with me, Uncle Ian, but, oh, I'm awfully glad you didn't tell me a few years ago because the boys at school wouldn't have liked it." So everyone's worried about everybody else. Yes. And I just long for the day when no one worries about it. And I think we're creeping there. We're creeping there. Towards it. And, you know, I can't think when your show started, you would have had two gay people on it talking as freely as this, and an audience listening.
Not in 1970.
No one's thrown anything yet.
Although the thing is, of course, is like, it's particularly adolescents when we're supposed to first begin questioning stuff to do with our sexuality of some kind. It's a shame that even if you think you're gay, that you can't just be allowed to develop. Because sexuality is a very complex thing. But I can only speak from my experiences. When I was told what I was, practically before I even knew it, you know, and you end up with a lot more baggage. It would be nice if we could all just develop into whatever we are, and they're not have to
and
be...
we could drop these words, you see, which are very, very limited.
Can I ask the two of you as well? I mean, going back on this wish thing. I mean, do you wish, the two of you, that well, would it have been easier for you had you been born heterosexual?
Well, I can't imagine what it would be like, really. I mean, I find heterosexuality an absolutely fascinating phenomenon, and I'm very, very interested in playing straight people because you have such amazingly complicated and difficult lives. So, no, I wouldn't like not to be gay. I revel in it. And when people say, I'm glad to be gay or I'm proud to be gay, there is a sort of sense that they've earned the right to be proud, because we do have something to deal with, which isn't really our problem. It's a problem that we're given by society's confusion and ignorance. But so we have to decide how we are going to cope with the world in a way that straight people don't have. And so when we come through it, and we do come out, it is with an enormous relief, an enormous pride that at last we are on our own 2 feet. and straight people are denied that possibility. So, no, I'm happy with things as they are.
You are. What about you, Anna?
I think, given that when I was 14, I was thinking, okay, I'm adopted, you know, and I'm gay. I could do without, you know, one of them. I unquestionably think that in many ways my life would have been easier if I wasn't. But, you know, I mean, I don't even know, to be honest, I don't even know if I would even say I am gay. You know, I can't relate to the word anymore. I've lost those sense of what it means because I'm called things about it so often. I'd just like a chance really to develop now as a person. I certainly know that some of the greatest women I've ever met in my life, and I include many of my friends in this, are either bisexual or lesbians. And I wouldn't ever give up for anything the opportunity I've had to have friendships or be lovers with some of those women.
Now, Johnny, you've been very quiet during this discourse. And I just wondered if you were sat there taking it all in, absorbing it, and...
I wish I'd had that much drama going on at such a young age.
I know, and it makes your problems about taking your cakes off would seem very small indeed, doesn't it? Hey?
Yeah, but heterosexuality has its trials and...
As you pointed at the beginning of this show, precisely.
Coming home and admitting to my family that I did intend to make love to someone sent shockwaves through the town. Flee! Johnny's accepted he wants to have sex. Not with me. Do you find that frustrating, though, that with Lord of the Rings, it's so widely acknowledged what a great trilogy it is, that when it comes to awards, they might just go, well, it doesn't really need it. And it should still get them anywhere, whether it needs it or not.
I don't think that works.
Well, yes, I mean, that could happen. But as I was saying earlier, I can't get too excited about awards because how many times have you watched an award show and said, rubbish, he shouldn't have won, or why didn't so-and-so win? And that's the case. It's only a group of people making up their own minds. And actually, I vote at the Oscars, and half the time I haven't seen the films that I'm meant to be voting at. And I have a little dinner party, and I say, has anybody seen any of these movies? Well, what do you think? What do you think? Well, oh, Albert Finney, yes. And, you know, if that's how I do it, that's probably how they all do it.
Yeah, they're all disenchanted now that, you see, they thought it was a proper contest. No. But no, I think there are certain things that, you know, that all that's true, certainly true. And award ceremonies, generally speaking, are sort of a peak shows. But there's something happens with a film like you've been in, actually, that makes it different. And just a scale of it, and just its place in cinema history. That's the point.
Well, I think it's perhaps earned that without anyone actually having to confirm it by giving an Oscar.
Ian Mckellen, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you,
Ian
Mike.
Mckellen. Port Python. My thanks to Sir Ian Mckellen, to Rona Cameron, Johnny Vegas, Alicia Keys and Katie Malua. Next week, my guests include Robson Green and Kylie Minogue. From all of us here, a very good night. Good night.
We'll have a closer look at next week's Parkinson in just a moment. Tomorrow, test your knowledge and see if you can beat the brains trust. Join Peter Berner for the intriguing questions on the Einstein Factor, 6:30 tomorrow night. Coming up, the final of Murder Rooms.